Thanks, Dan. Jack Murphy was killed last night. I could not believe it. I looked at the phone and I thought maybe I'm dreaming. I was a student in Rome at a time when I thought life was terrific. My parents had been immigrants from Italy, and here was their son going back, studying for a doctorate and living in the city of Rome. Now, Jack Murphy was my best friend, and he was 29 years old. If you've ever been through a trauma, the first thing you do is deny it. There's something wrong here. This can't happen. Jack can't be dead. But to give you an understanding of why it was such a trauma for me, it would be helpful if you understood what kind of zany, brilliant, wonderful, caring friend this man was. On my birthday, one cold November day, Jack took me to Osti's in New York because he knew I loved the opera. And when we got there was this tremendous line, and it was cold, and all of a sudden, Murph decides he's going to go inside. But before he goes, he turns to me and he says, "Take your overcoat off and put it on your shoulders like the Italians do." I put my overcoat on. He goes into the building, he comes back in about 2 minutes, and he waves me in and he says, "Come on, we're going inside." I said, "Okay, lunatic, what did you tell them?" He said, "Not much. I just told them you were Dr. Tagliareni, the very famous Italian heart surgeon." With that, we enter, and the owner now is running up to me, and he's native-born Italian. Now, I speak fluent Italian, but he's going to know I'm not a native. So he says, "Dottore Tagliareni." I said, "When I am in America, I only speak English." With that, the soprano now dedicates the song to me. I'm in the front table, and I turned to Jack and I said, "What happens if someone has a heart attack?" He says, "Jump on his chest and start banging away." That was Jack Murphy. Now, I preached his eulogy, but any of you who ever have been through sudden death know that is the easiest part. When I got back to Rome, for the first time in my life, I was depressed. I went through that whole phase of life is stupid, all these jerks are alive, and Jack is dead. And at that time, I was reading this book. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. It was written by Dr. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist. And for some reason, I decided this man can help me move my way out of this sadness that I feel. So I called him. I expected to get the 15th secretary, and I said, "I don't speak German very well, but I need to speak to Dr. Frankl." He said, "Speaking." I said, "Well, I'd like to study with you." He said, "Fine, where are you?" I said, "I'm in Rome." He said, "Well, I'm in Vienna, come and see me." I came to see him. I started studying with him, and I went to his room one night, and I said, "Victor, the world is stupid, it's crazy, it's awful." And for 2 hours, I dumped all of my feelings on Viktor Frankl. And at the end of 2 hours, he looked at me and he said, "You feel great pain because you love this man. Loving someone is a risk, and at times it's a price." And then he said something that changed my life. He said, "I don't know when it will happen, but there will come a moment when you will have to make a decision. You will either get in the grave with Jack Murphy emotionally, or you will understand what his life meant to you, and you will live fully because he gave you meaning." And then he said, "If you bury yourself with Jack, you didn't know who he was." Now, what I'd like to share with you is what I learned from this absolute giant. The first thing I learned was, no matter what your circumstances are, there are always choices.